Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. We are in the 9th day of September, and we're celebrating, first and foremost, the synaxis of the righteous answer of God, Joachim. After every great feast, there is a synaxis after Christmas, and after Theophany and other saints, and other feast days, and saints associated with the feast are commemorated. And so that's what we're doing today. Yesterday we had the feast of the birth of the Mother of God, and of course the mother and father of the Mother of God, righteous Joachim and Anna, were major, very important figures in that whole event. So today we're celebrating their memory. In addition, we have the memory of the great martyr Ciaran of Sebastian. We have the memory of the 200 God-bearing fathers gathered at Ephesus in 431 for the Third Ecumenical Council that anathematized the impious Nestorius. This is the Third Ecumenical Council in Ephesus, very important for the life of the church. Nestorius was the Patriarch of Constantinople, who was teaching heresy, and St. Cyril of Alexandria was called, along with other bishops, a council to condemn the heresy. He was unrepentant. He never repented to the end of his days, and there is, to this day, a church that follows after his teaching. So this shows you how important and relevant is everything that happens in church history. It's very important we understand church history so we understand what's going on around us, because there are still plenty of teachings from the ancient church which are believed today. We also celebrate the memory of the Holy Father Theophanes, the Confessor, who led the ascetic life and confessed Christ before the reign of Diocletian. Holy Martyr Chariton, the Holy Venerable God-bearing Father Joseph of Volokomsk, a very important figure in the 16th century Russia for monasticism, had a great influence and started monasteries and left writings of great importance for the Russian Orthodox monastic life. Venerable Joachim of Orochok and Theodosius, Archbishop of Chernigov. We also have some Western saints, and we're going to actually be commemorating them today. We're going to be talking about them. One is Saint Ciaran, or Ciaran of Clonmacnoise. I'm not saying that right. Forgive my terrible Irish Gallen pronunciation. We're going to talk about him today. Here's his icon. We also have Saint Omer, Bishop of Ciaran in Normandy. Let's talk about our saint. This is a great ascetic from the days of Orthodox Ireland for 1,000 years until about the 11th century, middle of the 11th century. The people of the Isles of Ireland were not just wonderful, tremendous Orthodox, but had a tremendous monastic life. You see on our map where we are. So we're going to learn geography well in this class on the lives of the saints. So this is Europe, of course, and there's the United Kingdom, Great Britain, England, known by different names, and next to it is Ireland. And there, that little red symbol there shows you exactly where in Ireland the saint was born. So let's go and see that on the map. You can see here where he was born, right in the center of Ireland, the heart of Ireland. And he became one of the great ascetics, one of the great monastic fathers in the Church of Ireland. He's one of the so-called 12 Apostles of Ireland, later called such. They were all disciples of St. Finian, the great teacher. We'll talk about that in the life in a minute. Some of the 12 that we know, that are well known to us, are St. Brendan and St. Columba, and other ascetics that we commemorate throughout the year in the Orthodox Church. All of them Orthodox saints. Let's go to the life of the saint and begin commemorating his life. Here's another icon, and we're going to see the remains of his monastery to this day preserved in Ireland. So he's known as Ciaran the Younger because there is another Ciaran the Older, the Elder, and he lived, as we said, in the 6th century. Let's go back to our timeline. Actually, I have a timeline here. that already has on it, you see the yellow there, you see the yellow markings there? That's where we are. We're in the 6th century. 6th century. Everybody remember that. All my little friends here, I want you to look at that and remember where the 6th century is. Okay, we're going to learn the 20 centuries of the church well and understand where the saints are. So we're in the 6th century, about the time of the after the Fourth Ecumenical Council and before the Synod, the 5th and 6th Ecumenical Councils. So let's go back to the life. As we said, he was born where we showed on the map. And here's some things we can imitate. Very important. Why are we here talking about the saints every morning? Because we are commemorating saints in order to imitate them. Not to just praise them, not to just remember them, but to imitate them. That's why we're doing what we're doing. Everything we do in the church is to imitate Christ, and all the saints throughout the history of the church are Christ in history. It's the continuation of the incarnation. It's the presence of Christ in the world. And so we run to the saints precisely because they take us to Christ. And so we're looking to imitate. And look what it says here in the life. The future abbot inherited from his ancestors a deep love of wisdom and learning. This is very good. Very good. Let's have this love of wisdom. All the way in the ancient writings of the Jewish people, we have a great, great love of wisdom. And of course, what is wisdom? Let's see if anybody can answer me. Who or what is wisdom? Anyone? Is wisdom a thing? Is wisdom an idea? Or is wisdom a person? Wisdom is a person. It's Christ himself. You ever heard of the great church of Hagia Sophia in Constantinople? You've heard about that church? Yeah? The big church in Constantinople, the great Church of Christ in Constantinople. Well, that's dedicated to holy wisdom. Not to some female deity, not to some idea, but to Christ. He is wisdom. He is the wisdom incarnate. So, when you love true wisdom and truth, you love Christ. And he loved this. He loved learning from a young age. He was ever learning. You'll see in his life, he was continually under the tutelage of someone. This is another thing we need to learn in his life. We have to come under the guidance and the tutelage or the teaching of another person in our life. We have to have someone who teaches us the way. Anyone who says, I don't need a teacher, I don't need to learn, I don't need school, is a fool. Do we have any fools here today? I don't think so. You're here because you want to learn and walk the way of Christ. So, he came under several, we'll see, in his life. He was baptized by a righteous named Justus, who was his first instructor. Actually, there's 5. Another one we add to the list. In his childhood, he worked for some time as a simple cowherd, helping his family. Obedience to his family, simple things. Oh, many of us are tempted in our day and age where egotism is so strong to say, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, I don't want to help others. Why do I have to sweep? Why do I have to clean? Do we say that? No, we never say that, right? We never say that. If we do, we should repent of it. Why would we say we shouldn't help our family? Well, who are we? We belong to a family. We have a mother and father. We need to follow their advice, and we need to help them out of love for them. And so he helped his family. He in fact, they say in his life that he already, at this young age, with his piety, God was working miracles through him. He was educated by the prominent theologian St. Finian of Clonmacnoise. This is what I mentioned earlier, the father of the so-called 12 apostles or 12 teachers of Ireland. He was this great teacher who had many, many disciples, and he went throughout all of Ireland, and almost all of his disciples became monks or abbots. Ireland was filled with monasteries in the 7th, 8th, and 9th century. The spiritual father of these 12 apostles is St. Finian of Clonmacnoise. And he showed himself to be a great student, one of the most zealous monks. The Lord worked miracles already as a young man. What's amazing is he only lived till 33 years old. He died at 33. And you'll see what he did in just a few years. Let's seize the day, as they say. Carpe diem in Latin. Let's seize the day and take life and run quickly. We only have a few years in this world. We need to do what God wants, do the will of God. He worked miracles, as we said. He continued his studies with another great saint, Saint Edna of Inishmore. So that's 4 different tutors in his life, and he's only in his late teens at this point. And then he went with this saint to the Aran Islands. Let's go and see where that is. We have a little help with the map. So here is Ireland, and here is what you're seeing in this picture is this little box here, and you can see there's a bay, and then there's these islands out there. That's where he went to live. Yes? Quickly.
How did he die only 13?
We'll find out. We'll get there. So he went to live in these islands, and this is not uncommon among some of these sects. We have another famous island with very strict asceticism, living on just a few little roots from the earth. And during this time, he was a young man living under the tutelage of Saint Edna on the islands off Ireland. He spent 7 years on this island monastery, and he was ordained a priest there. At a young age, obviously, in his early 20s, he was ordained a priest. He had a vision, the saint, rather, Edna, his teacher, had a vision. Listen to the vision. He saw a great miraculous tree in this vision. It appeared before Ciaran, and the tree was seen growing very high from the middle of Ireland, protecting the whole of the island, with its sweet fruit surrounding the country, and beautiful birds taking from the fruit to other islands. St. Edna realized that the miraculous tree was his disciple, St. Ciaran, or Ciaran, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, who was a great in the eyes of God and man, and who would nurture and cover with his grace all of Ireland, becoming a true mentor for many. And therefore St. Edna suggested that St. Ciaran go and found a monastery in Central Ireland. So his teacher says to the disciple, I've seen this vision. You need to go back to the mainland of Ireland, and you need to start a monastery, because this is what God's will is. He moved from there to a lake, Ree, where he settled on an island in the middle of the lake. And there he lived another 7 years, and he built his first monastery. And it's probably likely that he also lived in another island called Scattery Island, and you can see the ruins this is the island there. I don't know if these are the ruins of his monastery or not, but this is the island that he lived on.
Mama.
And he had his spiritual mentor there was Saint Ciaran, another spiritual mentor, another one that guided him on the path. He was a great contemporary founder of Irish monasteries in his day. And he went to other places, other islands, and all of these labors, all of this time under the tutelage of all these great ascetics prepared him for his main task in life. See how long it took? 7 years here, 7 years there, learning under this person, learning under that person, and then he's ready to become a leader. So let's not run quickly to assume responsibilities and say we know everything and we know how to do this and we know how to do that. Let's be humble and learn well the spiritual life and the truth of things from our mentors. And then and only when we're prepared do we set out and become a teacher. In 544, in the middle of the 6th century, he established his main and greatest monastery of Clonmacnoise. I don't know how to pronounce these words, unfortunately. In the present-day county of Offaly in Ireland. Let's see if we can see that as well. Here we are. So we see our map here. And we can see this is where he was, in the middle of Ireland, right? This is the county he was living in. Off the banks of the great river Ciaran, that runs through much of Ireland. He had many great virtues. We're going to cut to those and talk about those for a minute. He, through his influence and through his ascetic life, he laid down a rule. And that rule, named after him, became a rule that almost all the monasteries in Ireland adopted. The rule means the way of life, how they were living, what they were doing, when would they wake up, when would they go to bed, when would they pray, when would they eat, what would they eat. There's a whole rule. So you didn't wake up and say, I think I'll do this today, and the next day, I think I'll do that today. No, you had a rule, and you followed that strictly, and that rule guided you to acquire the virtues. So here in our school, we have a particular rule. We have this time we do this, and then we eat, and then we play, right? And then we study, When we go home, we have a rule with our mother and father, and we do these things. The same thing in the monastery. The monastery we don't allow ourselves just to become lazy and play for hours and hours. Then we play a little bit, then we work a little bit, then we read a little bit, and that's the way we progress in virtue. And these rules are very, very important for all of us, not just for the monasteries. His rule became, as I said, followed by a very strict rule, fasting and prayer. And this led to him becoming a man of faith, it says, prayer, fasting, humility, learning, discipline, and caring for the poor. These are some of the main virtues that he exhibited and he gave to the people around him. And here's some of the ruins of his monastery. You see that? These are to this day, 1,470 years ago, this monastery was built. Here is a cross. Well, actually, this might not be the original monastery. The original monastery was built probably with wood. This was probably built after that, long ago. This monastery continued on for another 1,000 years, being a major monastic center for the people in Ireland. And these are the ruins of that monastery. Here's another picture from the river. What a beautiful spot to struggle and live for Christ. He's listed, as we said, one of the main apostles of Ireland. And what's characteristic of his life, he lived in total harmony with nature. So he didn't go against nature, he didn't abuse nature, he didn't act as if this is not God's creation. This is very important today when we have technology and all these means, and we can manipulate things and we can destroy things very easily. It's very important for us to remember that everything was created by God. So just some simple things from his life, which we can take as examples. He had a cow. Of course, the monasteries had cows in order to have some food and some way of making a living. They lived with the saint all his life, providing the monastery with milk. Later on, in the 12th century, the skin from this cow, which was preserved, became used for one of the most remarkable manuscripts in the Irish language, the so-called Book of Dun Cow. And so it was preserved, and you can see the honor shown to even God's creation, a simple thing like that. He also, when he was a child, had a tame fox that used to deliver the written tasks that he fulfilled to his teacher. So he had this relationship with the fox, which was very beautiful. He had, when he was in the midst of a famine in the monastery, he prayed hard that they might have this amount of oats that they had might be turned into good wheat, and a single sack of oat turned into 4 big sacks of wheat of the best quality, and even people were healed from sickness from this food. He was so humble and meek that when he was on his deathbed, he said to his disciples, "I want you to take my body and leave it on the hilltop over there, and as if it were bones of a deer. I don't want you to honor it at all," because, of course, great honor would be shown by all of his disciples to his body after his soul leaves his body. And because he didn't want that honor, he said, just leave it on. That's actually common in the lives of some of the ascetics. We hear that in other places. They don't want the praise of men because they want the praise of God. They don't want the praise of men, which is a trap many times and brings pride. And even at his deathbed, he was saying this. As I said earlier, he only lived to age 33. Amazing. How short his life was, but how much he accomplished. At 33, some people are still trying to figure out what they're doing in life today. They're not married yet, unfortunately. They're not sure what they're going to do. This is a shame. It's a tragedy because we're wasting our time. So much of our time is wasted in our life today. The saint, by age of 33, had accomplished so much, become the great teacher of so many people. Because he learned from so many wonderful teachers. You see, if you don't go and learn from the right teachers, you won't be able to become a good teacher either. These are some of the things said by saints that were his contemporaries, the others who were his common ascetics. St. Columba of Iona, one of the great ascetics, said he was a lamp shining with the light of true wisdom. The great scholar Alcuin said he was the glory of the Scots or the Irish. And others commemorate him. His monastery, as I said, continued on, had thousands of monks later on in the 12th, up until the 12th century. From the 7th to the 12th century, the monastery flourished. It's not probably an accident that after the 1100s, monastic life started to disintegrate, because that's when the church in Ireland had begun to come under the heretical views of the Pope of Rome, and it's the beginning of the descent from orthodoxy away into heterodoxy among the Irish people, which was a great tragedy. The monastery possessed a large number of beautiful stone and artwork and metalwork, which is renowned in Ireland to this day. Here's another picture of parts of the monastery. So this is our saint for today. And what is really interesting is that there's a new monastery being established just down the road from this monastery, an Orthodox monastery in Ireland. And it's very exciting. They're commemorating him as one of their patrons, along with the Mother of God. And here is we'll just show a little clip here from their video online, which is promoting, trying to raise money for the buying of the property. So they're showing you exactly where they're going to be located, not far from where the saint was. This is one of the sisters who's going to be a woman's monastery, and she's chanting here in English. Beautiful chanting in English. This is the property that they're wanting to buy. It's an old convent that's been is up for sale. They've got a large discount from the old sisters who are Roman Catholics, and they're looking to buy this property. They're trying to raise money so you can spread the word, try to support the continuation of Orthodox monasticism in Ireland. God bless it. May Orthodox monasticism continue on. Through the prayers of our Holy Father, Ciaran, great ascetic of Ireland, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on us and save us.